Okay, let me kick off by explaining myself, because I know there's going to be loads of people saying, why are you comparing the Drumtraks to the BMX and not a DMX to the BMX? A couple of reasons. Number one, I haven't got a DMX and I don't want to spend £2,500 just to make this video and make this point, or ask the question rather than make a point. And the question is, why do we have things like this, or why do we still covet things like this, a beautiful 40-odd-year-old instrument, when we have things like this that can do the job just as adequately? And to put that in perspective, looking at what we've got down here, we've got 6 channels. On this, we've got 8 channels, and we've got, I think it's 12 tones on there. 1, 2, 3. This is one sample, so that's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Well, actually, that's a single sample. The closed hat's just a cut-down version of the open hat with a little envelope on it. And on the BMX, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we've got 12 on that. We've got the 8 outputs on the back of the Behringer. We've got 6 outputs on the back of the Drumtraks. So I can do everything that I can do on the Drumtraks with the Behringer. So if I sample this, just check the tuning of that. That's it. That's what I sampled it at. We can tune these things on here. So we hold the sound, and then we can change the tuning. I don't know if you can see it on the camera. Probably not. 0 to 15. So I sampled them all at 7. At the halfway points, I could tune them just as much, and in fact, this can tune them an awful lot more. So if we go to the clap, for example, let's come and tune that. We can go down. I don't know if there's a faster way of doing this, but you can go down 2 octaves. Whereas on this, that wasn't 2 octaves, by the way, just getting bored of turning this. So about 7 semitones. Let's put this back at 0. So it really does beg the question, why on earth is the Drumtraks 3 times as much or more than you can buy the Behringer for? Because of course the Behringer can do so much more. You've got 16 banks of 120 samples you can put in this. That's 2020 samples more than you've got in the Sequential. There's a distortion. We can select the play direction and we can loop it. So surely we've got all the bases covered from the Drumtraks on BMX. We've also got all these performance controls. We've got panning, we've got volume, we've got these assignable knobs here. So this one's assigned to the distortion at the minute, but you can set it to control anything. We've got mutes and we've got solos using these voice buttons here. And it's easy to see what's happening on each of the steps. So there we got whatever this is. So there's the kick, there's the snare, got page 1, page 2, nothing on page 3 or 4. There's the hi-hats. So these are the open hats, the flashing ones are the closed hi-hats. So you can see what's happening on each of the channels. That's a pretty simple pattern, but you can see how it all works. If we hit pattern, we've got different patterns in each of the songs. So we've got 16 songs. Each of those songs has got 24 patterns in it. If we look at the banks, we've got 16 banks, as I said earlier. So let's just play this actually. So this is the DMX samples. They're the factory presets, but I've been sampling stuff in this myself. Come to the bank. This is the original. These are sampled directly off this. And I sampled those before I realized I had normalization turned off. You can't normalize after you've sampled it and saved it. So if I come to the others, and that's the same Drumtraks samples, but taken from the original EPROMs. And back to. So there's a real difference in the tone coming out of the Drumtraks itself and using the samples that the Drumtraks is playing. These are from the EPROM. And then these are from this. It's got a much more interesting tone, I think, that. And that's because the Drumtraks and the DMX have analog filters on the voices doing different things, especially on the toms. Listening to the raw EEPROM samples of the toms, you can hear some high-end noise, but on this, I think it's got a send filter on that. So if I come into the bank sampled off the original, that's this one here, it's got a different tone to the raw samples. And if you really want to get into the detail of it, if we listen to the original again, there's a different tone there, isn't there? It sounds a little bit brighter coming off the Drumtraks, and that's because we've sampled it coming off the Drumtraks, put it into the DMX, and the DMX has then added its own little analog filter in there. At least I think that's what's happening. And looking at the frequency analysis, the Drumtraks is on the left, the top one is from the machine, the bottom one's from the sample, the top right is sampled on the BMX from the Drumtraks, and the bottom right is just playing the samples from the EEPROMs. And you can see there is something a bit strange going on the top right of that one, and that's why it's not quite as bright. The Behringer being a bit darker, and there's the evidence on the frequency analysis, and coming to the bottom one, and that's the EEPROM sample, that's brighter. And looking at the chart on the bottom right again, there's something odd going on with the bass. It's not on the bottom left, it's not on the top left, it's not on the top right, but it's on the bottom right. So the Behringer's added that as well. And these are really subtle differences, but I've got to put them in the video. Otherwise, in the comments, people will pull out the fact that they are a bit different. And I'm not exactly being scientific here, but if we look at this dip we've got around 12 kilohertz, when it's been sampled on the machine itself, we don't have that here. So that sort of suggests to me that this little dip here, because it's not there, it's not there, and it's not there, has possibly been caused by the input signal on the BMX doing something. So the audio input is imparting some character as well. But not being super scientific here, like I say, I've not looked at all the other samples. Life is too short for that level of geekiness, even for me. But how big that difference is, or if it even matters to you, is really subjective. You can hear there's tuning differences there, and that's because the EEPROMs themselves are detuned, or the EEPROM samples are detuned on the machine. But while we're on the subject of repitching and detuning, these old machines would repitch and detune in a different way than modern samplers and drum machines, in that they would change the sample rate, or they'd slow the sample rate down on playback to detune it. So if we listen to like the snare, if we just detune that, so you're still getting that crispy crackle. You've not just slowed the whole sample down. So if we come to this, let's try and do the same. That's about right. And you can hear it's doing the same thing. Or a similar thing, at least. I can't get it bang on. I still think the Drumtraks sounds a little bit brighter. I don't know if this is doing it in exactly the same way, or if it's doing like a modern interpretation of that and emulating the way it does it, or if it's actually doing it on the chips themselves. But it's close enough, isn't it? It's doing the same sort of thing. Yeah, happy with that. Haven't pitched that kick drum very well either, have I? Let's go to the sampled bank. It should be a bit closer. But the fun bit happens when you sample other things. Here's the Drumtraks. And that was a fun day yesterday, sampling all those. So yeah, you can get so much more from a modern machine than you can from the vintage things. So again, and it is a genuine question, why do I like the Drumtraks so much? It's bizarre, isn't it? And the same with the 909 and the 808. They just have a real charm to them that the TR-1000 doesn't, even though it's a brilliant machine. You know, there's something odd about vintage stuff. Why on earth do we really like it? But it's not all amazing news with the Behringer. It is, you know, it's not perfect. We'll try and do some finger drumming on this, for example. I was playing around with it yesterday and it seems actually better than it was yesterday. Maybe my fingers have just got tired after playing around with it all day. But you really do have to give them a bit of a wallop so it's not triggering there. So if you're doing something fast, it's pretty difficult to use. They are velocity sensitive, by the way. You know, I'm giving that a fair old whack. There you go. The other thing is that you can get clicks between samples if it's not played to the end of a sample yet, and then you play it again. If I go to, I think it was bang 2, I think there's the pulsar. Go to the pads. There's this one. You can hear we're getting little clicks in that. And if you look at the waveform that produces, you've got little blips in that waveform. It doesn't always naturally move from one wave to the next. Sometimes it has like a little glitch in there. And that's not the only little bug in the firmware. While I've been sampling things, it seems to have added like an attack envelope. So I can't rely on setting the record threshold to start the recording automatically. Because after triggering, as I say, I was getting like an amplitude envelope, which was really strange. Here's a couple of images trying to show what was happening. And maybe that's why the snare wasn't so punchy earlier. So I've had to arm it manually, which is just a tap and a yes. And now it starts recording, stop again. And I'm not sure what's happening with the firmware. I don't know if it's got the latest firmware on it because you can't get SynthTribe app anywhere at the minute. I don't know if you looked at the Behringer site or looked at SynthTribe for anything, but SynthTribe just doesn't exist anymore. I've downloaded a 3.0.2, but that doesn't recognize the BMX, so it's not recognized even yet, which means you can't load samples in, which means you have to do everything manually, which means it takes ages and ages to do anything, because obviously when you're doing something like this, let's just sample something actually. So let's arm it and let's hit the kick. Let's disarm it. And now we've got to go and change the start and end point. So you zoom out and go in, and then you, hopefully this is shown on the camera. So you've got to do all it, and this just takes a bit of time when you're doing quite a few drum machines. And then go to the end point as well, so zoom out. Okay. Zoom out a bit more, or take a little bit more off, yes. And then we go to give it a name. So all this just takes ages. If you're doing a lot of work and you're putting a lot of samples in it, you really do need SynthTribe to be working, and to get the samples off and do anything else with them, or to share them, you can't, because you can't get them off it. I think you can get the programs off and you can get the patterns off or something like that via SysX. I've not tried it yet because I don't really need to. I've not programmed any patterns in, but the samples themselves are stuck in the machine. You can't do anything with them. So please, Behringer, sort out the SynthTribe app. Other thing that's a little minor niggle for me while I've been doing this with things like the hi-hats, for example, and the original hi-hat on the Drumtraks being the same sample, and one's got another a little envelope on it. The closed hat's got a little envelope on it. You can't have any envelopes on this. There's no envelopes in them. So it just makes it a little bit harder to do things. It'd be nice if you had a little ADSR in there or something like that. These are minor niggles, actually. You know, when it comes down to it, you know, it's a decent thing. And compared it to the Sequential, I'm talking about stuff that can't even do. It can't even think about doing that. So it's a bit unfair to mention it in a comparison, but as I'm probably not going to do a full demo of this, a full review of it, because it's the same as the LN drum. Well, maybe I will. Maybe I'll stick it against the LN drum, actually, because that might be quite interesting, because there are subtle differences in these. But anyway, I hope that was of interest to you. I hope I haven't confused matters too much and waffled on about real minor details in tone too much, but I do know that people will bring them up if I don't tell you anyway. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you found it useful. If it was, please do subscribe, ring the bell, join me over on Patreon. I've got samples, patches, tutorials, and other little goodies on there as well. And do check out my startycar.com website as well. Again, patches, samples, free things, cheap bits, and as I always say, pick up some of the cheaper bits. It all really does help to support the channel. So thanks for staying to the very end, and I will see you next time.